Nitya, and thanks to the keynote that was before us and the panel before us. It has set the tone for the conversation. And what a relevant conversation this is. I think we've always been wondering how what is taught inside the campus resonates with what is outside. And there always has been a gap. And if you look at engineering specifically, I think nothing is changing faster, than what is required of the curriculum in engineering colleges, given the rapid pace of advancement in AI, quantum computers, so many things. So this is the panel. These are the experts who deal with this conversation on a daily basis, and let's understand from them that do we have a curriculum that is relevant to the outside world, or do we need to make some changes? So let me start with the initial comments from the lady on the panel, Professor Minnie Thomas. There's some noise coming at the back. Can I just request everyone to keep quiet? It's a small hall, so I can easily hear it here. Let me start with you, ma'am. Do you think the curriculum that's being taught, say in Jamia, by the way, I'm from Jamia, I did mass comm from Jamia, resonates with what is happening outside the campus, or do the students have to unlearn and then get attuned to what is happening around?
Thank you. Good afternoon. In India, across the world, there have been efforts to keep up with the pace of industrial development. The curriculum has to be, revamped all the time. It has been happening. The only thing is how to make it more agile. It has been happening. So in elite institutions, we just heard from Professor Rangan Banerjee, in any elite institutions, there is a constant feedback mechanism, which is not impossible in any institution. If you are an autonomous institution, it's very easy to mold the curriculum and adapt it towards the relevance. However, it doesn't happen so easily because you become complacent, and once you develop a curriculum structure, it's very difficult to change because there are so many factors, inertia, primarily with faculty, to change a curriculum. So in Jamia, I can go with an example, what I did. When I came back from NIT Trichy as last year, I realized we had not revamped the curriculum, engineering curriculum, for a long time. We were still running 180 plus credits and no choice, no flexibility. So we revamped the curriculum completely last year, brought down the credits, introduced minors and honors, and all this exercise was done with industry and alumni feedback. And it's introduced, it's been implemented last year to the first year BTech students. So it is possible. And when you come to each and every subject, this I'm talking about the BTech curriculum, the complete curriculum. And we introduce, many non-engineering subjects as well, like, ethics, universal human values, Constitution of India. All these are very important to make a good citizen of India. So we have been doing it. So this is about the curriculum. If you come to specific subject or course which a teacher is teaching, the teacher can make changes very easily. And at the department level, in the board of studies level, it can be adopted very easily. So it is very much possible to be relevant.
Absolutely. I think what you are pushing for and what you've introduced is commendable. It's not just about the tech subject, it's also about the holistic development which you talked about. I have further questions on it as I come
Yeah, but
to
I
this.
would suggest, I would also at the same breath mention that there were a lot of resistance.
I'm
But we
coming
did
to,
it.
I have
Why
a
we
question
did.
on that, yes. Dr. Tuli, to you, one of the aspects is strengthening the strong foundation in core engineering principles, That is, of course, the mainstay of the institution. But at the same time, how do you introduce a bit of, innovation in that so that they can learn what is happening beyond that? How do you balance the core with something disruptive that's happening outside?
Okay, so I think we discussed a lot about the IIT system. Uh, Engineering education in India has been dominated by the IITs. But while we have taken some things from them, there are other things which, if they're not there, it doesn't work out. So let me start. A curriculum review is a major thing, right? You really look at inputs, whereas course, which we normally teach, there is a lot of flexibility for a faculty to teach a course, right? So coming to the question of agility, you don't need a major curriculum review always to take care of disruptions coming for things outside. It is expected that the faculty who is concurrent will actually be taking part. So roughly, let's say, 10% of the course should be at the end be about future things coming over here, right? You can give assignments. So this is the normal way it is handled. Just one part I'll say, the ecosystem of a BTech is not alone in a university. So if you look at the IITs, there is a PhD, there's a very strong faculty research component dealing with industry. You have postdocs, PhD, masters, then BTech. But if you have let's say in the private where it is very strongly just BTech oriented, this part is missing. Now that also is a very important part of the teaching of a BTech in the IIT. So, to answer your question, yes.
You keep a 10%,
So typically
headroom for the innovation is
Yes.
always part of it.
So if you look at the course curriculum for a typical course, the last future direction, there'll be a few courses always kept for that. So I'll just limit myself, then we'll come back later.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Professor Dr. Maneek Kumar, what is the story of BML Munjal University when it comes to re-looking at your curriculum and revisiting it, making it more attuned to the outside world?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I think it's a pleasure being in this August company and also the audience which we have. And I see there are a lot of students here, which makes it all the more exciting to, kind of look at this in a very different way, I think. So I'll take up the real topic which you brought in here, and it has a very important component which is called agility. And I think we want to be agile ourselves. If we look at that, when I think we want our students to be agile as well. And I think the curriculum should reflect that. Now, is it reflecting that or not? We need to understand first what agility is all about. Now, I looked at the definition and I also looked at what agility is all about. It brought in three very important components in it. So the first thing which brought in was flexibility, which is very important. Second thing it talks of is collaboration. And the third thing which it talks of is speed. So if I just look at that aspect, what do we want our students to be, as they move out? We want them to be agile. We want them to be flexible. Now, if that has to happen, they have to be flexible in the way they work in different environments. They just have to first appreciate the problem which is up front, and then they are ready to find solutions to that problem or not. So they have to be flexible. The problems will not be only engineering problems. So there will be problems which will be social problems. So they'll have to find solutions to those problems. That's one. Second, it's not about working in silos anymore. I think that was brought up very nicely by the professor as well, that you just can't have a civil engineering degree and say, oh, I am done and I can just work in that particular space. You have to be very interdisciplinary in the way you also study. So the teamwork and collaboration is absolutely important in today's scenario. And I think that is what the curriculum also has to reflect big time. And speed, the way the technology is changing, is the curriculum also adapting to that with that particular speed or not, is the next important thing. And at the university where we're kind of balancing it in a very nice way. So where we start initiating our students to the joy of engineering right from the very first semester itself, where we expect them to first identify problems, work in teams and try to find solutions which are very relevant solutions to those problems. And they kind of take that coursework in that very little sense as well, while appreciating the problem in hand as well. So that's what we're trying to do. We have brought in that flexibility for the students to not only just go in depth into a particular course, but also to see how wider they can go. So that advantage comes from the different schools which we have. We have a school of management on campus, we have a school of liberal studies on campus, and we also have a school of law. So there are multiple minors, like you said. Now it's easy to do for us, like you said. Now we can always bring on those minors very nicely into that curriculum where the students not just only go into depth of AI and ML, but also kind of go into that space where studying those minors as well. So that flexibility and the kind of collaboration which is needed and how speedily we can change the curriculum is very much existent. And we're trying to pass on those skills as well to the students in the right way. And that's what we're trying to do at the university through that particular initiative.
Absolutely wonderful. I think especially I like when you said the joy of engineering, how you unleash it, to students and make them really immersive, make it immersive for them. Professor Thomas, you did briefly mention about speaking to external stakeholders where, looking at the curricula. But tell me, how do you gather feedback from industry stakeholders, and is there any example wherein they suggested some change and you implemented?
Generally, there are two ways in which we do. One is, in our board of studies in each department, 2 industry members are mandatory. So whenever we do any meetings regarding curriculum or generally any academic discussions, we have industry as part of it. So they bring in lot of information, insights into what is actually happening, and this is there in each department. So we get inputs directly from industry, so they can influence the curriculum development as such. And the second way we do is through our placement office. So any company which comes for recruitment, and in engineering we have very good companies coming in. So the faculty coordinator or even sometimes the dean, we make sure that we interact with the representatives who come from the industry who have already interviewed our students, and they give excellent feedback as to what else is to be taught or what else is to be included. For example, we have a program, MTech in Control and Instrumentation. So the Siemens came they want students for 6-month internship or 1-year internship. So after the interview, they said, ma'am, it would be good if you can, although it's control and instrumentation, why don't you introduce a course on power electronics? So it's very easily done. So these 2 methods, and of course our alumni. That's a third channel,
Do
who
they
are
actively
working.
participate in these conversations?
Yes, they do actively, and some of our board of studies representatives could be our alumni so that they take more interest. So these 3 are our channels, and it's working very well.
Dr. Tuli, how do you do the industry exposure and assimilate the learnings from them? What approach do you follow?
Sure. Okay, so there are 3 parts to it. One is the knowledge or the content, right? So whether it comes from industry or it comes from research or it comes from other fields, that's one. The second part are tools. See, I think let me just preface it. People forget that engineering is a professional degree. You have medicine, right? So I think a lot, and we seem to mix up bachelor's degree. Professional degrees are very different than the non-professional degrees. And therefore, apart from the knowledge, there has to be a lot of tools. Whatever tools doesn't mean simply the machine tools. Or tools, engineers work with tools. And then skills evolve over time based on these things. So whether you say work with industry, whether you say work with academia, it's this, you have to have these 3 things: content, tools, and skills. Unfortunately, in the country, we've not had that. So that's the reason why we have a lack of core. We keep saying core engineering, which I sometimes feel is very funny because engineering is core at the core, right? And you say it's core. So we've not had good industry, strong industry, because there's never been a, we've had this debate of academia industry collaboration for ages. 34 years I've seen it from so many sides over here. You can't just wish it comes over here. So now the time has come, and India's sort of missed many revolutions over here. But now the time has come that we realize, and I just want to focus. The reason I chose this panel of agility was, you have to be much more agile now. That was the reason I said I want to sit for this panel. If you need to fuse these three things, then there is no industry, there is no academia, there is no entrepreneurship. You have to go back to basics. And for me, I think AI and all these things coming now together means what it was maybe 40 years back. Rangan mentioned in the morning about multidisciplinarity of engineering. You don't start by saying I'm a civil engineer. So this debate about having BTech in AI, BTech in this, again, this is a bachelor's professional degree, right? You don't start by making it a master's and so on. So what is it you have to do over here? You have to now reframe and say that for the future generation, what is important are fundamentals and basics. It will not come from generative AI, it will not come from any tool, it will not come from any skills. You have to be strong in your fundamentals. So if you look at this scenario, for me, the first year is going to become very critical. You're coming from school, you have to go to industry or wherever. The make or break time is your first year now, right? Now, in the first year, you have to involve all these stakeholders, your content, skills, tools. Industry is a part. If you excite the class, we see disinterest of the class, attendance issues, cheating, plagiarism, all these are merely symptoms that you're not connecting, right? So how do you connect? If you bring real life industry to class, I'm not saying bring them as professors of practice, don't do that. Problems. If you say to the first year, you talked about, so this is the joy of engineering, introduction to engineering. These are courses which were built in initially to see that it's, the engineering is multidisciplinary. And secondly, most important was to show that engineers solve problems. If you're sitting in this hall, everything over here is engineering based. The materials, the lighting, the sound system, the way it's designed. So these skills like design now separately is talked about a skill. It's a separate skill. Materials are important. How can you say to an engineer, even in computer science, that he doesn't know about materials? So these are things you should come back and say that the first year now is the core.
Make or break.
Make or break, and then carry forward to second, third, fourth years. Thank you.
I think you really explained it so well. I think it solves a fundamental problem. I think when you set the tone in first year, the disconnect, if there's disconnect, of course they won't enjoy, they won't come, they have to be pursued for attendance. I think you really...
There used to be a 5-year degree and then it became a 4-year degree, and then in 4 years we didn't know what to do, how to put the curriculum. But the question which 5 and 4 made a break was that the first year always used to be common. I think that has been the critical part which we have missed, and we are forgetting that. Sorry.
From the student point of view, it's like a fun year, No, for the other, they want to just party, maybe not attend, the other way around. Wonderful. Professor Kumar, what are the best ways to get best practices to get industry feedback incorporated in your curricula? What would be your suggestion? A lot of teachers here, even people watching us online, what would you like to say?
I think quite a few points have already been very nicely put across, by the two panelists. But I think more so, I'll just go back to what Professor Tuli was saying here, just drive home that point and then come back to that again. I think it's absolutely important that this whole orientation of the students, even before they join the engineering program, is absolutely important. And I think that is one point which we are thoroughly missing. That at the school level, I don't know whether we're really able to counsel the students very well, that what is it that they're going to get into once they get into an engineering institution, or for that matter, a medical institution, or for that matter, any professional course where they want to get into. So I think that is one space which is still very untouched, I don't know, but maybe that is one space where we need to get strongly into and kind of set the aspirations right for them before they join the program. And right on the money, I think first year, we kind of missed out that bus big time, but I think we are going to come back to that, and we have come back very strongly. First year has to be common. And I'll tell you a very interesting example. What happened last year, we kind of made that common for all students, and at the end of the first year, quite a few students, right in the middle of the first year, many a student came back and said, so I think mechanical engineering is more interesting. So I would like to shift from computer science to mechanical engineering. Now, that was something which was very heartening to see, because I'm not talking of core as such, but then obviously the CME is kind of getting a little hit because of one thing or the other. But that is what we saw as a very positive impact of the students being exposed to the other engineering professions, or programs, got them interested to shift to that particular space. Now that's very, very important. Coming back to what you said, I think I absolutely agree. Having the industry professors to come and teach in the classroom has absolutely very important impact. Having them on the board of studies and the academic councils have an impact for sure. They bring in a lot of perspectives, but what we expect from them is to spend more time. And I think that is where probably, if need be, that is what we are trying to do at the university. We are going to them rather than inviting them to come to us. Now, I was at I've been privy and I've been attending quite a few of conclaves which the industries are putting up across, specifically with academia. So just to give an example, I was with Deloitte on a Deloitte symposium. They organized over 2 days at a particular space, and kind of majority of the academia were there. And they brought in some very interesting perspectives to us from the industry side, although we'll have to debate and work on that. That's a different matter altogether. But that was very interesting. They said, now we don't have any jobs. We're not offering any jobs to these students who are coming in. We are offering careers. Now, there's a lot of change which has happened with the way the industry is thinking up front. They're not talking about that we want a student to code anymore. They want a student or a student who joins them after the degree to ask questions. I don't think are we teaching that in our universities is another matter which we need to discuss. Now, we talked about ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT is a fantastic tool, but do we have the wherewithal to ask the right question to the ChatGPT to get the answer which we're looking for? I think that's where another interesting engineering is coming up, is called prompt engineering, right? So I think it's all about skills, it's changing, and we have to kind of imbibe that into our faculty as well, where if need be, probably our faculty also needs to be much exposed to the industry workspace rather than just only exposing the students to that workspace. I think that is another space which is very uncharted. And I'm pretty sure if some industry is sitting here, maybe the next conclave we can have industry representatives also there and they can listen to this conversation. They probably would understand more in that sense that that space also needs to come a few steps ahead to kind of close that gap which still exists. And maybe we may not have any unemployable people, if we're able to fill that gap. So that is what I thought.
I won't wait for it. I'll ask that question right away. In fact, that's my next question. Professor Thomas, one thing I have observed personally is, not just engineering. Take any subject or any domain, faculty. People are just students are thrown into the hardcore learning of it, and they don't really, the counseling part is missed out, and when they emerge, they're confused. They don't know where to go, do you tackle this problem? Are you actively working towards this problem? And second is, it's not about the agility of the curriculum and the industry and the students. Of course, those who teach it, are they agile enough? Are you investing on that front?
Thank you. I teach a final year class, electrical, this semester. And the first thing, the first class I ask them is their name, where are they from, and what are their aspirations? What do you want to do in life? And I'm sorry to say, even in final year, they're not clear. Majority of them are not clear what they want to do, which is disturbing. So I can pass it saying that they are the COVID batch because they started engineering during COVID times. They are graduating this year. But then how we are addressing it is, first year now we have, when they join, we have a 3 to 4 week long orientation program where we bring in 3 weeks is mandated by AICT, but we make sure that we do that 3 weeks. And that's very, very important exactly what you talked about, to orient the students towards engineering. And what are the prospects? So we just concluded our orientation on Saturday. So we bring in, first of all, we tell them what is in store for them in different branches. And also we bring in lot of alumni. And, who are in diverse fields. Like we brought IAS, IPS to engineering services to, core engineering or management. So that they know that, okay, these are my possibilities. And of course, those who have done higher studies, they're professors, so that they get oriented. And generally I've seen students will come in with some perspective that I want to do this, but then over the years they completely change into something else. But at least by the end of the third year or by the beginning of seventh semester, they should decide what they want to do. And the thing is, nowadays, so much of competition, you cannot just hang on to one thing. They should have an alternative, right? So this is how we are trying to now bring in that, they should dream of something. Then only they can work towards
You're
it.
helping them. And what about the faculty part of it? Yeah.
So, as I said earlier, to change the curriculum, to bring down changes in the curriculum, the most difficult part was convincing the faculty. Because, we have young and old who have taught for 30 years, 40 years, and young people who have just been brought in. So it's a diverse group of faculty. And unfortunately, for a college educator, there is no formal training. To teach in a school, you need to have a B.Ed. But in college, just after your degree, B.Tech or M.Tech, you are,
Eligible, yes.
thrown into the sea. So there is a need for training in all aspects. Some of them don't even know the pedagogical methods they can use. They don't take the student feedback seriously. I have been teaching for more than 30 years, but still I get a lot of inputs from my current students how to improve as a teacher. So that lifelong commitment comes in. I tell a good teacher is made by good students. If you have good students who will ask questions, you make a good teacher. So there is a need to train teachers, because the mindset, it's very difficult to change, of somebody who has been there in the system for a long time, but somewhere we need to change. And also, like Professor Rangan said, and many of us will agree, a class, we can bring back the excitement by the teacher. For example, I teach smart grid technology. I'm a automation engineer, power system. So when you talk about practical things, I make sure that every class, one student should talk about something.
Yeah, okay.
Should talk about something which is happening real in the world. For example, reduction of electricity losses, less power cuts. So they get interested, how did it happen? That's basically you have to automate.
Right. Sorry, in the interest of time, I have to just
sorry.
get to, no, but really, really insightful, and the way you explained it. Dr. Tuli, coming to the faculty part of it, the reverse side, the other side of the coin, where you have to also be agile. How do you, approach that part where your faculty is forced to be agile as well,
Okay, so there was a time when the first engineering professors for us in the ITs, they used to be physics professors, right? There were no engineers who used to teach. So that was one time when engineers came into teaching. The second part now takes place where most of the professors produced have no industry background. They are coming with PhDs which are based on research, journal publications, but there is no connect. So your question is, with an input like this, how is the output students going to be industry connected? Right? And you have to break the lock. And this is why exactly conversations of industry academy have taken place without any fruit. So how do you do it is, you have to reskill the faculty. So we start by making policies. For example, sabbaticals or 3-month leaves are not only encouraged, you should have to make mandatory and say, please go and work with your core engineering sector, right? That's the only way you'll have to break this logjam. Second, while projects, again, the research R&D budgets is more from the government through DSTs and so on. But as long as the industry does not come into giving and, so we'll talk about partnerships separately, but the industry has to connect with, with faculty over here in terms of giving the. Third thing I'll just want to mention is there was a time when engineering institutes were geographically based. You looked at your local problems. That time has now gone. Everything is global. So I don't think we need to revisit that model of geographical connect between industries around it. But at the same time, the way we have been affected by COVID has really shown us that, it's a connected world. But I think the point is that everything is globally connected. And one point which you have to bring into engineering curriculum is about sustainability. You can't just talk about sustainability as words. For engineers, it means something. You have to make this as part of your curriculum. Right. Industry.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Final comment, Dr. Kumar. How do you, what is your brief to your faculty to make themselves updated? What's happening outside? Do you actively hold workshops? Do you force them to kind of, take on the industry courses? How does it work at your end?
So I think it's not about the force at all. Absolutely, that's a given.
Better word is like, how do you?
No, I think I agree with you. I think it's very important that they start appreciating the whole importance of being in the classroom, because I think we already very much know that the students come to the class with a lot of information which they have, which probably was not available when we were studying. And I think the first change which every faculty member has to look forward to and understand is that they are now going to be facilitators rather than somebody who could be a sage on the stage. So that is one change which is absolutely important. I think we understood it very nicely. But I think more importantly, what we are trying to do, I'll just put in, maybe take a minute or maybe less than that just to drive on that point. We're trying to get the faculty closer to the industry for sure. See, we come with a backing of a group which is very strong in manufacturing and is diversifying into many fields. And I think they are coming forward as well to see to it that if we want the faculty to be there in the industry and understand and maybe learn new technologies or new changes which are happening, we are going to get into that particular space for sure. We are already starting that. We are inviting them to come to the campus. And more so what we're also trying to see is that we're also trying to make them appreciate that our faculty has done research. Now, that's a very important component to even do industrial research, because they understand the way it is done. And if they can be invited to the industry, shown across, and if they identify certain issues and problems which are there, the industry should be ready to come up and have that faith in the faculty to find solutions to that problem. I think if that starts to happen, right, where the industry, because if you look at the systems across, I think it's majority of the projects which the faculty gets is from the industry. And it's not from the government, like the change which is here. And if we look at it, 95% of the funding which is available is actually available from the UGC or DST and the DBTs, where once again it is kind of distributed to the elite institutions. So I think if the industry and the academy start to appreciate the importance of each other in the space where the problems can be identified and solutions can be found out, I think that'll bring a lot of constructivity into the way the teaching happens in the classroom. And the students can be involved in that as well. Wonderful. So that is something which we're trying to do. And let's see how it bears the fruits. But that's what I thought I'll share with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, I always think the panel has the fourth panelist, the audience. But I'm sorry I can't take questions at this stage. But I really thank you for sharing your inputs from really addressing the root of the problem, which starts with the connect, the conditioning, the orientation, to industry, engaging with the industry stakeholders, looking within. I think all these points are very relevant to this, and I hope we had more time, but we'll definitely have more conversation on this. Thank you so much for joining us.